Bit of a recap. Last time, Paris, despite being abandoned as a baby, has managed fairly well for himself. He has a magical, beautiful, and intelligent wife and healthy son. He has land and wealth. He also has a good bit of renown and respect that he won with the power of his bare hands. This includes the respect of at least two gods. So, of course, he's going to throw everything away for someone else's wife. Paris, you idiot. Aphrodite starts Operation Shipping straight to hell by telling Paris he's born a prince of Troy and tells him how to go about reclaiming his birthright. And so Paris skips off to his doom. So, following Aphrodite's advice, Paris sneaks off to Troy and arrives during a festival honoring the gods. Part of this was a giant boxing tournament open to everyone, but traditionally dominated by King Priam's sons. Honestly, how could it not be dominated by them, though? There's enough of them to hold their own tournament. Paris enters under a false identity and beats the crap out of everyone. Now, this makes sense to me if he spent a significant time being raised by bears, because then he'd have a wicked southpaw. I regret nothing. King Priam asks him who the heck he is, and Paris tells him, reclaiming his birthright. I like to imagine Cassandra in the background just screaming in horror during this whole scene, and everyone just tuning her out. Poor Cassandra. Now, everyone's actually happy to see Paris, but King Priam's sweating a bit. But when Paris mentions he'd like to go tour Greece, Priam thinks this is a great idea. There's no way for Paris to doom the whole city if he's across the sea visiting a bunch of foreign countries. Oh, Priam, you would think. Paris is given a ship and a crew and sent right out, and he makes a beeline towards Sparta, the city his wife begged him never to go to because it would kill him. Great job. So, yeah, Paris has abandoned his wife and is breaking promises to her left and right. The idiot. Helen's husband, Menelaus, welcomes Paris as a guest and treats him like family, to the point of telling Paris to just chill out, make himself at home when an emergency calls Menelaus off to the island of Greek. Paris promptly makes himself at home by taking off with Helen and the treasury of Sparta before his host has even gone a week. Interesting little side note, that emergency was the death of King Minos, to whom Menelaus and a number of other Greek kings and heroes were related to, because Minos married his daughters to Greek kings. Given that Minos is widely considered to be a mythical representation of the Minoan civilization, I mean, we named it after him, and these were Mycenaean kings because this whole mythical cycle takes place towards the end of the Bronze Age. That suggests some interesting things to me about the relationship of Minoan and Mycenaean civilization. More relevant to the story, that means Menelaus finds out about this while he's surrounded by family and friends, armed, powerful family and friends who have sworn oaths to go to war over this kind of thing. Great. I mean, at this point, how do you not start a war? Imagine some guy coming into your country as a foreign diplomat. He's given every courtesy and dignity, and his response is to make off with a family member of the head of state and loot the national treasury on his way out. Even in the US, which is pretty tired of war at the moment, I think there'd be mobs in the streets screaming for rivers of blood. I would be demanding something be done. That bastard stole our tax dollars and likely kidnapped a member of the first family. Now, whether Helen went entirely willingly or not is something that's debated even in Greek myths. But I'm still calling Paris an asshole here. First of all, he abandons his wife and child. He abuses the trust of several men for his own selfish desire. That's second. And third, he's starting a war over another man's wife. There's no way people weren't going to die over this. A lot of people are going to die because Paris can't keep his pants on. That's not okay. Anyways, the Trojan War obviously happens. And I'm going to skip over a lot of that, especially the events of the Iliad, because you already know about that. I'll just note there's a major character shift here. Up until this point, Paris has been kicking ass and taking names. On the way back from Sparta, he even stops off at a random island, burns a city to the ground, and loots that too, because why not? But in the Iliad, he comes off as kind of a cowardly wimp. Part of this, I think, is a desire by the storytellers to make the villain of the story look bad, and at this point, Paris is the villain. Another part is Paris is now fighting literal demigods and men who have been training since they could walk to murder other men with sharp bits of metal. Paris likely doesn't have a lot of formal training. Even the fighting he did on Mount Ida was likely with simpler weapons, and it's very unlikely that his opponents had a lot in the way of armor, since back then armor's expensive. Even the best boxer in the world is in trouble if he enters a wrestling contest, right? Because it's a whole different way of fighting. I might be overthinking this, though. There is one more tragic note I want to hit, though, before we reach the end. Paris's son by Oenone, his first wife, shows up at Troy because the war goes long enough for him to grow up to adulthood. He finds Helen first, though, and falls in love with her, because everyone does. Now, there are several versions of this, and at least in one of them, Helen loves him right back, which, Helen, you're old enough to be his mother. In fact, you kind of are his stepmom. Wow, that's a whole Pornhub category, right? In just about every version, though, Paris returns to find what he thinks is a stranger putting the moves on the wife he rightfully stole from his host. No, I'm not letting that go. And kills his own son in a rage. This is tragic, but it's also Paris being kind of a hypocrite, if you ask me. Paris does kill Achilles with help from Apollo, who at least told him where to aim the bow and arrow. Paris is then shot in turn by Philoctetes, who had inherited the poison arrows of Heracles. FYI, I am sticking to the Greek names when possible. Philoctetes is another character I'd like to get into someday, but for now, he's just the guy who inherited the poison arrows. Dying, Paris returns to the mount of his youth and to Oenone, his first wife, to beg her for help. Remember, she's a nymph. She knows magic. She sees this guy, the guy who abandoned her, the guy who killed their son, and is now begging for help after ignoring everything she told him, and tells him to drop dead, which he promptly does. Now, the Greeks claim that she killed herself in a fit of remorse at Paris's funeral, but I don't buy it. The Greeks have this tendency to make every female character's life revolve around a man, to the point that even the Romans felt it was gratuitous. I'm just not buying this one. But yeah, that's the tragic story of the rise and fall of Prince Paris. A man who fought his way up from being abandoned in the wilderness to be raised by bears, achieved a level of respect and renown and happiness, and threw it all away because he couldn't contain his greed and lust. Because he couldn't do that, he ended up destroying himself, his birth family, his found family, and in fact, his entire society. This is me wildly projecting modern morals onto this story, which is not entirely a safe thing to do, but if you have to hang a moral on this story, I'd say it's be happy with what you earned honestly, because being a lying, cheating thief can have terrible consequences. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed listening. If you did, please leave a like and a comment. Maybe subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. I'll have a link in the description below to my Patreon, where you can join us for as little as $1 a month to vote on upcoming content. There's a poll up right now. I'm also leaving a link to my written book reviews. There's 7 years worth of content there. I hope you enjoy that. So, next week we're gonna jump into Helen, and I hope you guys enjoy that. But until then, stay safe, keep reading.